All right, guys, here's part 3 of our Unit 2 video notes over photosynthesis and cellular respiration. These two processes will be our focus in this section. These are the processes that are used to create energy in plants and animals. And these processes have many pathways, as you can see in the two diagrams on this slide. All we are going to focus on primarily in this video, though, are the reactants and the products of each. So we're going to start with photosynthesis. This is the process of autotrophs, which are producers, mainly plants, converting light energy with water and carbon dioxide into oxygen and high-energy carbohydrates. And so this chemical energy is stored in the covalent bonds of glucose and other carbohydrates. As you can see in the picture on the right, there is light energy, coming in from the sun, which is reacting with the carbon dioxide and water that is already in the plant. This causes a chemical reaction converting both of those into carbohydrates and oxygen. It releases the produced oxygen, as you can see here, and it stores the carbohydrates to be used as energy later on. Photosynthesis takes place in plant cells, specifically in an organelle we just learned about called chloroplasts. These chloroplasts are green due to the presence of chlorophyll, which is a light-absorbing pigment. So a good example seen here on this slide, this is an Elodea cell, which is a type of plant. The little green circles that the arrow is pointing to, and we can see under a microscope, those are chloroplasts, and that is where photosynthesis is taking place. Here is a more in-depth picture of what a chloroplast looks like. So the chlorophyll pigment takes in all other wavelengths of light except green, which is why the leaves appear green to our eyes. The green color is being reflected back. The reactants of photosynthesis are light. Some examples of light would be sunlight, lamps, something like that. Water, or H2O, and examples could be from rain, dew, etc. And then carbon dioxide, or CO2. Sources of carbon dioxide is respiration, which is a product of breaking down sugars for energy. So what animals use, we respirate carbon dioxide. Another one is decomposition, which is when organic matter is being broken down in ecosystems. And lastly, combustion, which is the burning of fossil fuels. So these factors, light, water, and carbon dioxide, affect the rate of photosynthesis. The products of photosynthesis are glucose, which is C6H12O6, so sugar or large carbohydrate molecules, and then oxygen or O2. So here is the chemical reaction written out in the form of the equation of photosynthesis, which occurs in the chloroplasts of plant cells. So as a reminder, everything on the left of the arrow are considered the reactants. So you've got carbon dioxide, water, and we include light energy even though it's on top of the arrow because it's needed for the reaction to happen. And then everything on the right side of the arrow, so glucose and oxygen, would be the products being made when the chemical reaction occurs. All right, we are going to switch gears now to our second process, cellular respiration. This process is mainly used in animals or humans, but is a process that plants utilize as well on a smaller scale. The definition of cellular respiration is the process in which producers and consumers take glucose and convert it into a usable form of energy. This usable energy is stored as ATP in all cells. There are usually over 1 billion ATP molecules per cell. So there are two types of cellular respiration, aerobic and anaerobic respiration. Aerobic respiration occurs with oxygen, whereas anaerobic occurs without oxygen. Looking at the picture on the right, you can see a strawberry is something that we can eat. As we digest it, the carbohydrates get converted into ATP, which is what we use for energy. So again, there are two types of energy molecules we are going to stick to in this class, which are ATP and ADP. The first is ATP, or adenosine triphosphate, which is a molecule that cells use to quickly store and use energy. The energy is stored within the phosphate bonds. This energy molecule is like a fully charged battery. ADP, which we can see on the right-hand side, or adenosine diphosphate, is created when ATP releases energy by breaking a phosphate bond and becoming ADP. This gives cells energy to work. So looking at the pictures, you can see the adenine group, ribose group, and 3 phosphate groups right here. So when one of them is broken off, right, the phosphate group is removed, and energy that was stored in this bond right here is what we use to go on, let's say, a run. We are constantly breaking down these ATP molecules to give us energy to continue running at a quick rate. So to get energy back from food, we have to add phosphate groups back onto ADP molecules to return our energy to ATP. So remember, removing a phosphate group from ATP releases energy and turns it into ADP. So we can see in the image here on the right how ADP is related to a partially charged battery because we're missing a bond. And then as we add energy back in by adding that third phosphate, it's like recharging that battery back to full, and we get the energy back in ATP. So the reactants of cellular respiration are glucose and oxygen. Glucose, or C6H12O6, is a carbohydrate like sugar or starch. Heterotrophs get their glucose by consuming food, and then autotrophs produce their own glucose during photosynthesis. The next reactant is oxygen, or O2. Heterotrophs get oxygen from the environment, so breathing with our lungs, or fish with their gills, and some different types of diffusion. Then autotrophs release oxygen into the environment as a product of photosynthesis. The products of respiration are water, carbon dioxide, and then usable energy, or ATP, as we are breaking things down. So, cellular respiration is a chemical reaction that occurs within the mitochondria of both plant and animal cells. You can see in the chemical equation written on this slide that there are 2 reactants, 6O2 and C6H12O6, or glucose. And then we see the arrow representing the reaction that is happening. To the right of the arrow are the products, which from this reaction are carbon dioxide, water, and energy in the form of ATP. So, because the products of photosynthesis are the reactants of cellular respiration, both of these reactions are part of a metabolic cycle. Now, to talk about anaerobic respiration. This is when respiration can occur without oxygen present, also known as anaerobic conditions. Anaerobic respiration produces way less ATP molecules. It can only produce 2 as compared to the 36 that aerobic respiration produces when oxygen is present. There are 2 different types of anaerobic respiration. The first is lactic acid fermentation, which occurs in the muscles and causes cramps during strenuous exercise. This type can be used for short bursts of energy. The second type is alcoholic or ethanol fermentation, which occurs in bacteria or yeast cells that do not require oxygen for survival. This process is important for the food production industry. Okay, so now let's compare side by side the 2 processes of photosynthesis and cellular respiration. Both of these processes are used for transferring and converting energy. But after that comparison, they go their separate ways. In photosynthesis, food is produced. In cellular respiration, food is broken down. In photosynthesis, energy is stored, and in cellular respiration, energy is released to be used by that cell. This means photosynthesis is anabolic and cellular respiration is catabolic. Next, in photosynthesis, carbon dioxide is taken in as a reactant along with water, and in cellular respiration, carbon dioxide and water are given off as a product. Photosynthesis gives off oxygen as a product, and cellular respiration is the exact opposite. It takes in oxygen as a reactant. Photosynthesis is also a light-dependent reaction that only occurs in the presence of chlorophyll within chloroplasts, while cellular respiration does not require any light energy and occurs in the mitochondria of all eukaryotic cells. The last comparison is that photosynthesis occurs only in autotrophs, where cellular respiration occurs in both autotrophs and heterotrophs.